Hello and welcome to my important presentation on risk ratio or relative risks. Today, I would like to discuss of definition of risk ratio with a real example. We will interpret also for different value of risk ratio. That means interpretation of risk ratio when RR is equal to 1 or greater than 1 or less than 1. Dear viewer, to get more videos on data management as well as data analysis, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and press the bell icon. To understand the risk ratio, we have to know some points. Those are prevalence, incidence, risk, exposure, non-exposure, cohort study. Today, I will not describe detail of this point. I will just mention where we need this point. Prevalence refers to the presence of individual like having a disease or health condition or any outcome at a specific period of time, usually expressed as a percentage of the population. Prevalence looked at all current cases, whereas incidence refer to the number of individual who develop a specific outcome during a particular time period, such as month, year, etc. And incidence looks at new cases. Risk. Risk is the probability of an unexpected event experience a specific health-related event as negatively impact during a particular time period. To estimate the risks of an event, generally we use cohort study. And RCT is used to estimate the incidence of recovery outcome. Let us consider a cohort study where exposure variable is wearing mask or not. This is totally for example. Suppose 300 participants are enrolled in each group, then total 600 participants are enrolled to conduct a cohort study to test the hypothesis, the impact of wearing masks on affecting COVID-19. During enrolling, all participants are COVID-free. Please remember that all participants are COVID-free during enrollment. Now, we follow 6 months to assess the outcome variable status of COVID situation. Now, after 6 month follow-up, we found that some people have been affected who didn't wear mask. Similarly, some people also affected who wore mask. Since all outcome are new cases outcome, then we can say that the proportion of COVID positive is an incidence. Also, since it is a health-related event as negatively impact during a particular time period, therefore, the incidence will be called the risk. Suppose from the data, we found the following result. And using the result, we can calculate the proportion of having coronavirus positive among those people who didn't wear mask. That is called risk among those people. Similarly, we can calculate the proportion of having coronavirus positive among those people who wear mask. Then ratio between two groups is called risk ratio or relative risk. Now, we calculate risk ratio. Now, finally, the risk ratio of having coronavirus positive among people who didn't wear mask was 1.58 times compared to the people who are. Now we can arrange the finding to better understand. Since we highlighted the situation of not wearing masks, therefore not wearing masks is kept as numerator and wear mask is kept as denominator. Now simplify the equation, and from the equation we may say that the risk of having COVID-19 was 1.58 times among the people who didn't wear mask than the people who wore mask. Now, the definition of relative risk. In statistics and epidemiology, relative risk or risk ratio is the ratio of the probability of an event occurring in an exposed group to the probability of the event occurring in comparison non-exposed group. And this is the properties of relative risk. That means risk ratio or relative risk is always non-negative. If the value of RR is 1, that means this is the null value and there is no relationship between disease and exposure or outcome or exposure. RR greater than 1 indicate greater risk of disease when exposed than when unexposed. RR less than 1 is the lower risk of disease. To calculate risk ratio, we use log binomial regression, that means a generalized linear model with binomial family. Today, I will not show the detailed calculation procedure. In another presentation, I will show detail using stata and SPSS. In the syntax, BIREG means binary regression. COVID, outcome variable is COVID, that means COVID positive or negative. And the exposure variable is wearing mask, that means wear mask or not. One means a reference category. Based on objective, we kept ES as reference category. That means the reference category is ES. The effect size gives us as the risk ratio, RR means. The RR was 1.58, which is similar with manual calculation. Now we can also adjust other variables such as gender, place of residence, etc. And this is the adjusted result. That means multiple model gives us adjusted risk ratio. And we can prepare the table like this, where these are unadjusted RR calculated by simple log binomial regression, and these are adjusted RR calculate multiple log binomial regression. Now we interpret the result based on adjusted RR, and we see again the properties of risk ratio. Here exposure variable is not wearing mask and outcome variable is having COVID-19 positive. Risk ratio for all variable greater than 1. That means for this variable, the risk ratio greater than 1. That indicates greater risk of having COVID positive when no wearing mask than when wearing mask. Now, we can say that the risk of having COVID-19 was 1.54 times among the people who didn't wear mask than the people who were. Or we can say another way that the risk of having COVID-19 was 54% higher among the people who didn't wear mask than the people who were. And small p value indicate that the association is statistical significance. The null value of risk ratio is 1. Since 95% confidence interval does not contain the null value 1, therefore, we also say that the association is statistically significant at 5% level of significance based on 95% CI. This error is 1.01. P value is large, greater than 5%. Also, observe that confidence interval contain the null value 1 so that there is no association between gender and COVID-19. This risk ratio is 0.67, which is less than 1, and p value is small. And observe that confidence interval does not contain the null value. So, association between residence and COVID-19 status is significant. The value of risk ratio is less than 1 that indicate is the lower risk of having coronavirus among rural population. We easily understand the dimension, but the interpretation on strength is slightly difficult. That means how much percentage or how much times. But if we use a technique, then it will be really very easy to interpret. To understand better interpretation, we can write it as this format. Since urban is reference, therefore it would be as a denominator. 0.67 means 1 divided by 1.49. Now we can simplify. Finally, 1.5 times the risks among rural is equal to risks among urban. Now we can interpret easily that the risk of having COVID-19 was 49% lower among the rural people than urban. And this is the final interpretation. Now I am stopping here. I request you to give the variable suggestion in comment box. Thank you very much for watching this video. Next, I will give a detailed presentation on calculation risk ratio using strata and species. To get the videos, you may subscribe my channel.